Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Tuesday, June 25th, and this is episode 41 of Azeroth United. We have a great show lined up for you today. We'll be covering the War Within beta, surprise, surprise, and the new Mythic Affix Design. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. We're going to do some lessons learned from Dragonflight and the current state of WoW Remix. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if you have a particular topic that you'd like to hear discussed, please email us at azerothunitedpod@gmail.com. Or you can send us a voice message by going to speakpipe.com/AzerothUnited. Also, if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps out our distribution, so if you're inclined to do so, we'd be very grateful. The podcast game is hard. As I'm learning more and more about the podcast business, the more I'm learning how terrible I am at it. So if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, go ahead and give it a rating on whatever app that is. If you happen to be on Apple Podcasts, even better, because that drives most of the distribution. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. All right. Before I get to the news, I wanted to do a quick rundown of what I got up to last week in WoW. Last week was kind of a weird week because I didn't do any beta and I didn't do any remix. I pretty much did Keystones. It was the dungeon bonus event for the week, and for whatever reason, I decided this week I'm playing WoW. This week I'm playing Dragonflight. And so I did, I don't know, about 12 keys on my monk. And I did 4 keys on the hunter just to get the bonus event done. I was going to do a key on my warrior, but got about 50% of the way through a Brackenhide, and the tank rage quit because I think we had about 15 deaths at that point. So yeah, that was fun. I also dusted off my Evoker. So when I played Evoker, I made the Evoker in the beginning of Dragonflight. And I started with Preservation, which I hated. And then I tried Augmentation in Season 2, or the beginning of Season 3. And I didn't really like Augmentation, but everyone was like, oh my God, you have to have an Aug Evoker. So I was like, oh my God, I got to play an Aug Evoker. And I hated it. So, So then I tried him again as Devastation, and it turns out I'm not good at that either. So the story has no moral. I guess the moral of the story is if you're not good at a class, no matter what spec you play, you're not going to be very good at it. So, so there you go. Lizard Boy fails. That's what I'm going to go with. And I also continued to slowly prep my Death Knight for the War Within. It's rough. So my Death Knight is blood, and I really like tanking as a blood DK. I really have a good time with it. The problem with it is that I'm terrible at it. And I don't mean terrible as in I can't tank the mobs and I don't know what. It's that I'm not good at high level dungeon tanking. So like a Mythic Plus, that sort of thing. It's rough. It's rough. I did some heroic dungeons, and that was about all I could handle on that character. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. I guess maybe I could try Frost, see if maybe that's a little better. I don't know. It sucks because I really love that character. I like his. So my characters all have different personalities, and so I like that character's personality. He's one of my OG characters. I've had him since obviously Wrath of the Lich King. I think the only character that I have right now that's older than him is my, so I've got a hunter and a paladin. My paladin is pretty much retired, so my hunter is really my oldest character. So, my priest. I'm also retired. My discipline priest. So I have a shadow priest, and I got too many alts. Anyway, so if you've got a lot of alts, I can relate to you. If you like to focus on one character, that's outside of my outside of my realm of understanding. I did do a few LFRs, and I'll tell you, LFR is getting worse and worse. I did it It was, I think it was on the Monk. I did a Farak, so whatever the last wing of Amir Drusilla is. And people were getting so angry about a wipe on Mythic LFR Farak. Wow, I wish I was doing Mythic Farak. Wow. LFR Farak, people were getting so angry about one wipe. And it's like, you know what? Yes, this fight is so easy compared to where it was at the beginning of Season 3. But it's still harder than, say, Gnarl Root. You know, you have to do the mechanics or you're going to wipe, and even in LFR. So that was frustrating because people were getting angry. They were vote kicking people from the group. It got ugly really fast. And I think at this point of the season, people start to get really protective of their time, like they're in a hurry. And I guess, I mean, my thing is, if you're playing a video game, you shouldn't be in a hurry. You should be playing and relaxing and having a good time. But that's just how I approach it. Some people approach video games with a very different mindset of, you got to get it done. You got to be the best. You got to go full speed. You got to, like, let's get this over, move. We're moving on to the next. I don't like to do that. I like to take a much more casual approach, which is why I don't run high-end Mythic Plus, because I don't have that drive. I don't have that, that kind of steam engine, you know, we're going to plow through this type mentality. I don't have that in me when I'm playing video games. I'm here to relax. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think, as far as what else I did last week, it's really it. I did a lot of, I did a lot of alts through the last Hurrah quest, trying to get a couple pieces of gear. And honestly, that's really frustrating because you go through there on your alt and you go, all right, I need some gear because I have Season 3 gear or Season 2 gear in the case of my Evoker. And when you do that, you get, 3 pieces of veteran gear from doing the 3 events. So the Dream Surge, the Dream Seeds, and the Super Bloom for last Hurrah. And then you get 1 champion piece for completing the whole thing. I got 3 cloaks in that and a ring, which, you know, in a season where you could buy rings from a vendor, the best rings in the game from a vendor, that was really frustrating. And so I don't think that Blizzard needs to put deterministic loot in the World Quest arena, but I do look forward to the War Within when we have the option for the World Quest or the World event, public events type things are going to be in the Great Vault, and you can pick something if that's all you do on that character. I'm really looking forward to that. So anyway, all right, that's enough of that. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, okay, so there's a couple of small things that I wanted to mention. Then we'll talk about the Wowhead interview with Ian and Morgan towards the end of the news. But first off, Blizzard Entertainment has announced that they will have a presentation at Gamescom 2024. So Gamescom is a big European gaming convention event thing. So it's August 21st through the 25th, and Blizzard's going to be there. They're going to do stuff for Diablo and for World of Warcraft. So we don't know yet what that's going to entail, but the clever of you will notice that August 21st is the day before early access, and August 25th is the day before the launch of the War Within, the official launch. So this is right around that time. So there's going to be a lot of hype going into this. So I would assume that if they're planning an announcement, it's going to be something big. I don't know. Maybe it'll be the first patch of the War Within. Maybe it'll be something else entirely. Who knows? But if they're going to announce something right at the beginning of the launch of the expansion, it's going to be something big. So mark that on your calendar. August 21st through the 25th, Gamescom. Pretty exciting that Blizzard's going to do that. And actually, there's going to be a whole Microsoft panel there where they're going to do Fallout and Elder Scrolls and a bunch of stuff. But for our concerns here, World of Warcraft, obviously, that's the number one. I played Diablo, but that's really not my thing. So, yeah, Gamescom 2024, Blizzard will do their presentation. So it's pretty exciting. The MDI has finished its proving grounds for the Great Push. So this was the open sign up for basically push as high as you could. They did Brackenhide Hollow and Ruby Life pools. And so it was run as high of a key as you can. And then the top 12 groups would move on to the next round. And so, yeah, it was actually pretty cool. Some of these, 9 guilds completed a 21 Brackenhide and a 21 Ruby Life pools, which is absurd. Now, of course, the top 12 guilds, every single one of them had the same comp with one slight deviation. So it was Vengeance Demon Hunter, Resto Druid, a Frost Mage for Brackenhide, and 10 out of the 12 had a Fire Mage for Ruby Life pools. The other 2 had the same Frost Mage for Ruby Life pools. Aug Evoker and Shadow Priest. That was it. Everybody had the same comp. You want to talk about meta comps, that's the meta comp. I don't care what you say if you're... And this is for the Great Push. So obviously we're trying to go as high as we can. We're not trying to worry about speed. This isn't MDI where we're going as fast as we can. We're going as high as we can. So in this case, if you finish 1 second before the timer, you're good. Now, obviously, if there's a tie, if two teams both complete 21s, then they're going to look at the times as the tiebreaker. So you still do want to go fast. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that all of those guilds were running the same exact comp. So the top 12 groups are going to be split into 2 groups. So Group A will be July 5th through the 7th, and Group B will be July 12th through the 14th. And then from there, those 2 groups will have 3 teams each, and then the global finals will be the top 6 teams July 19th through the 21st. So that should end right before the pre-patch comes out, because we're still assuming that it's coming on July 23rd. Oh boy, there's a lot of WoW going on right now. It's actually really tough to keep track of everything that's going on, because you've got all the War Within beta, you've got the esports, you've got the pre-patch coming up, you've got what's going on in Dragonflight. There's a lot going on. So, but anyway, if you are into esports at all, I would definitely check out the Great Push. There will be a link to the Raider.io site that's kind of managing all of this in the show notes. But, it's worth checking out. I think it's pretty fun. I like the Great Push format better than MDI, although MDI is exciting. I will admit. I got really into it this last time. But, Great Push, basically going throughout the month of July. So check it out. All right. The last regular news item before we get into this Wowhead interview was the guild services will be retiring. So if you are familiar with this is the guild transfer and guild faction transfer. So you can transfer your guild to a new server, or you can transfer or change your guild from Alliance to Horde, which I don't think it really matters because we have cross-faction guilds. But because of the War Within pre-patch launching with the guild cross-realm guild feature as a system, the guild services will retire on July 22nd. So just giving a little bit more credence to the idea that July 23rd will be the pre-patch. This is going to basically retire right before the pre-patch comes available. So if you really want your guild to be on a different server right before you can invite anyone from any server to your guild, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, pretty much this is a dead service that nobody's going to use, because, you'll be able to invite anyone to your guild in less than a month's time. So, it's, like I said, it's just one more piece of evidence in the estimation of when this is going to happen. We probably won't know for a couple weeks still, because Blizzard is going to want to finalize everything and make sure everything is all nice and tight before they announce the pre-patch. But, we've seen a couple of things that were data mined on the beta that give us kind of the idea that, all right, it's coming on the 23rd. So whatever, it'll be here when it gets here. But I'm putting my money on the 23rd. So, all right, let's talk about this Wowhead interview. Obviously we're going to skip the Mythic Plus affix discussion because they just announced a lot of changes for the Mythic Plus system in earlier today. So we'll talk about that in a little bit because I want to really break down that announcement. But in this announcement, so there was a few different areas that they touched on, and obviously Mythic Plus got a lot of attention initially. And so if you're not familiar with what happened, so this is a Wowhead interview with Ian Hazzikostas and Morgan Day. So the game, basically the number 1 and number 2 game runners for World of Warcraft. And they talked about private ores, they talked about raid difficulty, defensive creep, lots of things. And I would definitely check out the interview yourself because I'm not going to go through all of the different components and discuss them, but I am going to kind of highlight a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. They talked about private auras, and they talked about how that was something that they basically created as a tool to help combat some of the bloat that they saw in terms of add-ons and in terms of encounter design that was causing a lot of problems. So they're going to continue to use it as a tool to clean up some of these encounters that maybe are not working correctly. So if you have a really complicated weak aura that's doing the encounter for you, and it's something that they can remove that from the weak aura and not have the answer to that be a complicated macro in response, which is what happened in Dragonflight, then they'll use that tool. But they don't want to use private auras if there's just going to be this really overly complicated method of dealing with this mechanic. Obviously, that means that the mechanic doesn't work. So they talked about raid difficulty and how they're working on that, and that's an ongoing thing. That's going to be tough because they want to tune things for the Race to World first because it's a very big event for Blizzard. It generates a lot of attention, especially in the beginning of an expansion. But what they're going to do is they're going to be more consistent with their nerfs, and they're going to be more communicative with how those nerfs are coming along. Because one of the things that they got from the high-end raiding community is, hey, don't nerf this boss. We're almost done progging on it. We're about to beat it. Please let us beat it pre-nerf. Which, I mean, I get that. I do. But at the same time, there's guilds that really need that nerf before they can get to that point, and the fights are just too hard off the bat because they're tuned for these Race to World first, and they acknowledge the difference between a Race to World first guild and a Hall of Fame guild and a we barely got cutting edge guild. Now these are all top guilds, but there's a difference between those, just like there's a difference between a Mythic guild and a Heroic guild. There's a difference between a Hall of Fame guild and a Cutting Edge guild. Those aren't the same thing. Now, a Hall of Fame guild obviously is getting Cutting Edge, but if you're just barely getting Cutting Edge, that's different. That's different. So they talked about that. They talked a little bit about item level upgrades, but that was kind of they danced around. There's a lot of linguistic kind of kung fu here by Ian and Morgan. They're very careful to not answer some of these questions that they really don't want to answer. They talked about classes and combat. They talked about okay, so this one was really funny. So they talked about parry and how Wowhead asked, with the removal of the increased defensive range to some of these mobs, are they going to look at changing the way parry mechanics work? And because some of these bosses have to be up against a wall, so you can't really get behind them, and so you're going to stand in front of them and get parried. And their response was basically get good. It boiled down to they're not going to change that core mechanic. They will look at fights to make sure that they're not putting players in that situation, but they're not going to change the parry mechanic. So if you hit a boss from the front and you get parried, it's your own fault. That's what Blizzard said. Raid buffs, they're not going to add new raid buffs, or at least they're not planning to add new raid buffs, but they're not taking it off the table. It's more of the, if it comes to it and they want to add raid buffs, great. And it basically boils down to Death Knights and Shamans don't get raid buffs. So if you play one of those classes, I mean, if Shaman, you're not getting any changes for the War Within. You're basically getting the exact same class that you had in Dragonflight. So that's just how it goes. They talked about healing, and that was a really big topic. And I've mentioned it before on this podcast, where I feel like healing is rough on the beta right now, but they explained why they're doing it that way, and it does make sense. What they're saying is, for healing, if you want to challenge a healer, you can do it one of two ways. You can either, if their heals can top off their group really fast, then you have to do damage in a large quantity. So you basically have to create all of these essentially near one-shot mechanic. So if you hit somebody for 80%, if you don't top them off right away, then they're going to die with the next hit. Right. The other option is to say, well, you are only going to heal them for 10% of their health every time you heal them. Therefore, the challenge is not in topping people off. It's making sure that you're constantly getting everybody's health moving up so that everybody can take damage and it's not going to kill them. So I do get it. There's a nerf to healing, but it's a good nerf. It's more of a design nerf. We'll see. I mean, I tried healing on the beta. I did a couple of keys. I did some heroics, and I don't know. It didn't feel great, but I guess, we're still learning and we're still figuring this out, and they can still tweak all the numbers to dial it in exactly the way that they want. They talked about defensive creep. And again, this is one that they basically said they're not doing anything about it right now. They acknowledge the difficulty in managing the classes and giving classes defensives, and then also challenging those classes. So basically what it boils down to, if you have a defensive as a DPS class and you go into an encounter and there's something that's going to happen that requires you to use your defensive, the encounter designers are designing that encounter with the idea that, well, this person's going to use their defensive, otherwise this mechanic is going to one-shot them. So that's how they're designing the encounters, which means that if you're not good at using your defensive, you're getting one-shot. So that's a problem, because I don't know about you, but I find that WoW players, generally speaking, are not great at being consistent with stuff like that. Obviously, there's people who are really good at hitting their buttons exactly when they need to. Yeah, that's true. But for the most part, people miss kicks. They miss defensives. They miss, the AoEs. They miss stun. There's all sorts of things that players miss in a regular capacity. And so they're trying to balance that with the encounter design and say, hey, not every player can do this. But they don't have anything in place yet. They're going to start working on it, but as it stands right now, it's not going to change. Unfortunately. And they talked about there's a lot of other class specific things, but I'm not going to get into all of it because it's already getting kind of long. But and they talked about some of the visual clarity in raids and how it's difficult to see a friendly AoE versus the boss AoE and things like that. They're working on all that stuff. That's basically what it boils down to. They're trying to clean it up and make things look better. And part of that is, especially with a Mythic Plus approach, they're trying to make the encounters less busy, or trying to make the affixes less busy. But we'll get into all the affixes here in a little bit. And then there was talk about adding some of the really epic items back into the game. And again, they're not really going to go into all that stuff right now. So like I said, there's a lot of non-answers in there, but definitely check out the interview. It's really interesting. Ian and Morgan are both very good at non-answers. So they'll give us information when they want to, but they're also very good at not giving any information that they don't want to give. And in this interview, and we'll talk about the Mythic Plus in a minute here, but they did talk about the affix changes coming in and how I think this is something they've been working on for a long time. And I do think that the affixes that were announced a few weeks ago, or was it a week ago? I don't even remember when it was announced. That was... I honestly think that might have just been a test. We might have gotten new coked people, where they gave us one thing, and we'll get into that. I'm not gonna go down that road right now. All right, that's it for the news. Let's get on to this week in World of Warcraft.
Let's talk about World of Warcraft.
In Dragonflight, this is Season 4, Week 10. We only have 4 more weeks after this, or 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks. This is it. We're in the end game now, as Doctor Strange would say. The Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Volcanic, and Spiteful. So Fortified, non-bosses have more health and deal 30% more damage. You know it. You love it. You hate to see it. Volcanic. Enemies cause eruptions of flame near distant players. Additional volcanoes may appear near existing volcanoes. Yeah, volcanic is fine. Whatever. You know what? I won't have to talk about these affixes anymore. And spiteful. Spirits rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and chase down random players, dealing heavy melee damage. Right. Yeah. If you don't know the affixes at this point, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to explain them to you because they're all going away, except for Fortified. But we'll get into that. So yeah. It's actually not a bad Mythic Plus week, especially if you're doing under 10s and you don't have to deal with Spiteful. This is pretty easy as far as M Plus weeks go. I will probably try and do some more keys on my Monk, because honestly I had a lot of fun last week on the Monk running Keystones, but I don't know how much more. I'm not going to do anything above like a 4 or 5. And so once my gear tops out at 515, I'm pretty much done. So. All right. The Awakened content for the week is Season 1 content. So we've got Vault of the Incarnates in the Emerald Dream. Sorry. Vault of the Incarnates. Wow, I got a little typo there. Vault of the Incarnates, which is in Thaldraszus, not at the Emerald Dream. Okay, good job. The world boss is Basrakron, the Shale Wing, in the Awakened Shores. The Elastarok quest is the Community Feast, the Grand Hunt, and the Season Dragon's Bane Keep. And the reward is the Cache of Awakened Storm. So you're going to get all your original Dragonflight content out. Siege on Dragon's Bane Keep. Just, yeah. Mm-hmm. You also get the buff, the Sign of Awakened Storms, which will increase your reputation with Dragonscale Expedition, Maruk Centaur, and the Iskar Tuskar. So if you've been saving any of those reputation tokens, this is the week to turn them in. Yeah, it's you know, like I said, we're in the end game. So we've got, after this week, we'll have 3 more weeks, and assuming that it's the 23rd, which I'm just going to go based on that assumption. We're going to go with the 23rd. And if I get proven wrong, I get proven wrong. I've been proven wrong before. It's not so bad. So it's 3 more weeks after this. So basically after this week, we'll get 1 more week of each of the raids, and then we'll move on to all raids will be awakened during the pre-patch. So that'll be fun. The bonus event this week is Mr. Pandaria Time Walking. So we don't have a raid for Mr. Pandaria. Yeah. So you'll get the Sign of the Mist buff. Mr. Pandaria reputations from combat and quests increased by 50%. You'll pick up the quest A Shrouded Path Through Time from Khazra in Valdrakken. Defeat 5 time walking dungeons, and you will get a piece of normal awakened raid gear. I don't remember if it was ever confirmed if this is going to be from all 3 raids or if it's just whatever the awakened raid is, but either way, you'll get a piece of champion gear from one of the raids. It'll probably be Vault of the Incarnates. And I believe the dungeons are Gate of the Setting Sun, Mogishan Palace, Skoloman's Shadowpan Monastery, Stormstout Brewery, and Temple of the Jade Serpent. So go check out your Mists of Pandaria Time Walking. If you haven't gotten enough Mists of Pandaria from the WoW Remix, and we'll talk about WoW Remix in a little bit as well, then yeah, this is the week for you. If you haven't been doing the remix and you're like, ooh, I love Mists of Pandaria, go for it. This is great. But most people are gonna be like, I hate Mists of Pandaria now. I'm so sick of this, especially the dungeons. Oh my gosh. But at least it's not. What is it, the Siege of Nizao Temple? Oh god, that was the worst. Even on remix, it's awful. Anyway, the PvP brawl for this week is Cooking Impossible, which I don't know when the last time we've had these two line up, Mists of Pandaria Time Walking and Cooking Impossible, but here we are. Nomi is hosting a Pandaria and Chili cook-off in the Valley of the Four Winds between the Alliance and the Horde. First to bring Nomi all the required ingredients wins. This one's really cool because you're going to either cook or you're going to fight. And you could do either or and win. So you can grab all your ingredients and take them to Nomi, or you can go fight the Alliance or fight the Horde and stop them from doing that. So this one's kind of cool. This one definitely is something different. So yeah, make sure you pick up the quest Something Different, win a PvP brawl, and be rewarded with Conquest, Honor, and Marks of Honor. So there you go. Okay, let's talk about the Fire Festival. And there was a little bit of an update here about the holiday boss mounts drop things. So this is with regards to the Cliffside Wilderdrake Midsummer Fire Festival armor that drops from the boss, the Lord Ahun in, was it Slave Pens? You can queue for it. But anyway, so what they've said is we're changing the way the loot system for holiday boss drops work. We have increased drop rates significantly for the first boss kill on a single account. Only the first attempt on a single Battle.net account will be eligible to receive the drop. Okay, and that's the way it's always been, or the way it's been recently throughout Dragonflight. For each subsequent daily attempt on the boss with a single Battle.net account, the chance for the item to drop will increase and continue to accumulate for each failed attempt. This change will allow players to spend less time working to earn a specific dropped item while providing an increasing opportunity to get that item during the holiday. So basically, you just need to do it once a day per Battle.net account. So if you have even if you have multiple WoW accounts, it's only once per Battle.net account. I have 2 Battle.net accounts, so I'll have to run it twice per day. But even still, I mean, these Drake armors are not super exciting for me. But whatever. So yeah, this is a cool way to do it. They didn't give obviously the numbers on how much of a percentage you're going to get increased, but I'm sure someone will data mine it somehow. Yeah, I mean it's a good update, especially for some of the mounts that people actually want. Like the Headless Horseman mounts or the Love Rocket, things like that. So anyway, it's pretty cool. And hopefully this is a system that they continue to tweak and improve, because I know people get really frustrated when you get into these holiday events and you can't get what you want. That's frustrating. But in this case, I don't really want this one. So it's okay. I mean, first of all, the Cliffside Wilderdrake is my least favorite of the 4 original Dragonflight Drakes that you got. That one's lame. I've seen people using it, and I actually use it on one of my characters. But yeah, that one I don't really like because it's too small. You feel like you're riding around a little rat. So anyway. Yeah, so I think that's it for this week in World of Warcraft. We're going to move on now, and we're going to hit this Mythic Plus affix change that just came in today. So let's move on to something new.
Let's talk about something new.
All right. Let's try and break this down the best we can. So this came in this morning, and when it first came out, I thought, I'm just going to do a quick YouTube video on this. And I thought, no, I'll save it for the podcast. I'm going to go over it tonight. That will give you some time to think about it and kind of break down my feelings and my opinions on this. And I'm trying to look at this from the standpoint of not just my personal place in the Mythic Plus hemisphere, which is a very low-end Mythic Plus player, but also from the high-end player base and how they're going to approach these changes. First off, let's just hit right off the bat. They're getting rid of pretty much all the affixes that we have in the game currently, except for Fortified and Tyrannical. So right off the bat, every single thing about Mythic Plus is about to change. So we're going to keep Fortified and Tyrannical, but that'll also change a little bit. So we'll get into all that. But what they said is this week's beta update includes major changes to the Mythic Plus Keystone affix system in the War Within based on player feedback. Our primary goal with these updates is to refine the Mythic Plus experience to better serve a diverse player base. And that's what this does, I think. Previously, we approached Mythic Keystones with a one-size-fits-all approach, which proved challenging in striking the right balance and limited our design space. Now, here's the thing. Blizzard has tried this one-size approach throughout the history of WoW, and it never works quite really the way that the player base wants it to. There are talents or abilities that were nerfed because they were overpowered in PvP, which made them underpowered in PvE, things like that. And so slowly they've been kind of divesting these different game systems apart from each other. So obviously a class's abilities are their abilities, but now we have PvP talents. We have abilities that don't work in PvP, or they do less damage in PvP. You have diminishing returns on things in PvP that you don't in PvE, stuff like that. In this case, what we're doing is we're changing the way the affixes work slightly. It's not a big change. It's just a slight change for very high-end players. So I'll explain. First off, like I said, they're getting rid of all of the affixes that are currently Sanguine, Bolstering, Raging, Bursting. Those are all gone. We're already getting rid of Volcanic, Storming, Spiteful, Afflicted, Incorporeal. All those are all gone. Everything is gone. And the 4 affixes that they announced a few weeks ago are also gone. Reckless, Focused, Attuned, Thorn. Those are the ones that gave 10% arcane damage or 10% holy and shadow damage and all that stuff that everybody hated. So, well, no, I shouldn't say everybody hated it. People were conflicted on it, and turns out Blizzard didn't really love the idea. And so I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but I think we got new coked here. And what I mean by that is I think Blizzard put out a really crappy affix design, and everyone went, eh. And Blizzard was like, haha, what about this affix design instead? And we were like, yes, because we hated the first one. And so they tricked us with that. I think that was a fake out. And then they pulled those back and they put in this other one, and then we're like, oh, this one's great. And then I don't know. I don't know. I think we just had a fast one pulled on us. I don't know. Okay, so what they say is our one bucket of active affixes for players progressing through the system offers variety along with positive effects for executing these affixes that apply more evenly. We're reintroducing thematic elements to affixes, which I think is a great idea. By invoking Xal'atath in Mythic Keystones with her own set of affixes. Okay, this is going to be fun. We're utilizing passive affixes to signpost expected increases in player mastery and commensurate rewards as players progress through the Mythic Keystone system, and we're aiming to eliminate push weeks by providing a consistent challenge that focuses solely on the dungeon for players seeking to advance deeper into the Mythic Keystone system for scores and titles. So basically, if you're a high-end player and you're trying to you're just doing rating, there's changes for you. If you're a low-end player and you're just trying to get in there, and so your affix system is going to simplify significantly. So you'll still have that variation from week to week, but it's going to change how that is presented. Okay, first off, the new affixes. So no longer will Fortified and Tyrannical be the +2 affixes, which they've been for since as long as I remember. So the new +2 affixes are Xal'atath's Bargain. So there's 2 bargains that Xal'atath will make. The first is Ascendant. While in combat, Xal'atath rains down orbs of cosmic energy that attempt to empower nearby enemies, increasing their haste and movement speed. If players disrupt these orbs, they claim this effect for themselves. So we don't know what this is going to look like. Is this going to be a new tank mechanic? Is this going to be a players you have to run around? Is this like Thundering Affix where you have to meet up with your partner? I don't know. We don't know exactly how that's going to work. What we do know is that this is the new base affix. The other one is Frenzied. Non-boss enemies become frenzied at 30% health, increasing their haste by 40%, but increasing their damage taken by 20%. So mobs are going to hit like a truck at 30% health, but our damage to them is going to increase by 20%, or their damage taken will increase by 20%, which means we'll be able to kill them really fast. So at low levels, 2s, 3s, 4s, this will be fine. These affixes won't bother anyone because the mobs don't have enough health for this to be an issue. Once they get to 30% health, they're pretty much almost dead. And unless you have a mob that gets to 10% and then everyone switches to a different mob, and then that 10% mob is just standing there nuking you with 40% haste, then yeah, okay, that's a problem. But generally speaking, in Mythic Plus, you grab a group and you nuke them down, and everybody dies around the same time. So I really like these affix changes. And like I said, these are the +2 affixes, and we're assuming, because we don't have all the details here, but we're assuming that these are going to work. These are going to work similarly to how Fortified and Tyrannical do, where they go back and forth. But they did leave open for adding more to this Xal'atath's Bargain. So they say for our first test this week, we'll have 2 Xal'atath's Bargain affixes available. One affix is an event that players must deal with periodically, while the other is a passive effect on creatures throughout the dungeon. So it sounds like there might be more coming. We'll see. this is definitely a interesting way to approach the Mythic Plus. And if all you ever do are 2s so that you can get something in your vault, then this is all you'll ever see. Okay. Next one that's new, so we're just talking about the new ones here, is Challenger's Peril. And this is a +7 affix. And this one is a solo affix. So it's always there. And this one's rough. Dying subtracts 15 seconds from time remaining rather than 5 seconds. So you know how you have a wipe right now and it's 25 seconds plus the time it takes you to run back. So it's usually 25 plus another 30 seconds. That's like a minute lost, basically, from your timer if you wipe. This now increases that significantly. So it's 15 seconds per death. So if you have 5 deaths, that's, what is that? 60 seconds that you're going to lose just from dying. Plus you have to run back. So now you lose a minute and a half instead. It's a big difference. And that would start to add up, especially if you have that one guy that can't stay alive. You know who I'm talking about? Yeah, this is huge. And then the new +12 affix is called Xal'atath's Guile. Xal'atath betrays players, revoking her bargains and increasing the health and damage of enemies by 20%. So this basically removes the +2 affix and replaces it with a new +12 affix. So what does this mean? All right, let's look at Fortified and Tyrannical next. We're just going to go through this post that they put out. So Fortified and Tyrannical will both be added to the dungeon alternately at 4 and 10. And what that means is at 4 you'll get Fortified and at 10 you'll get Tyrannical. And then next week you'll get Tyrannical at 4 and Fortified at 10. Either way, once you get to 10, you'll have both Fortified and Tyrannical every week. And once you go above 12 or to 12, you will have the same affixes every week no matter what, because the only ones that are going to change overall are the Xal'atath's bargain affixes at 2. So once you get to 12 and those get replaced, it's the same affixes. You'll have Fortified and Tyrannical, Challenger's Peril, and Xal'atath's Guile, which is the mobs are now going to have 20% more health and do 20% more damage, which means 12 plus 12 keys are going to get really hard. So, and that's the whole point, is that if you're pushing high level keys, this is what you have to do now. And it's the same for everybody. No more push week, no more dead week. This is the same affixes for every single person doing 12 and above. This is what you get. Now, I think this is really good for people in that group. I think the people that are going to struggle the most are people who are doing higher level keys, but are not quite in that +12 bracket. They're going to struggle with this, because once you get that Tyrannical or Fortified at 10, that's going to make things really tough, because the mob, it's going to be a slog at level 10 and above. It's going to be rough. So unless they change the percentage of increase for each level of Keystone, which they might do, we don't know. It's going to be really tough. Getting through these Keystones is going to be hard. And then, so 10 and 11 are pretty much going to be the hardest keys until you get to 12. 12, I don't know how the Xal'atath's bargain affixes are going to affect high-level keys. And I guess we'll just have to see. We'll see that on the testing here. But once you get to 12 and you know what you're dealing with, you can plan for it. All right, all the mobs have 20% more health. All the mobs do 20% more damage. And I'm assuming this includes bosses too. Let's see, does it include bosses? Increasing the health and damage of enemies by 20%. So it's non-boss and boss enemies. So all mobs in the dungeon will have 20% more health and 20% more damage done. But you can deal with that. But on a week-to-week basis, figuring out how to deal with the different affixes, that's where there's going to be a challenge. And I think players in that 10-11 range are going to find themselves either doing 9s or doing 12s. The 10-11 range is going to be dead. I think it's just going to be nobody's going to want to live in that space. But we'll see. We'll see how that comes. I also think that the new +7 key, Challenger's Peril, that is going to be the pug killer. nobody's going to want to do a 7. If you can get up to a 6, but you can't get up to a 10, what benefit do you get from doing a 7? Now, there was some talk about removing aspect crests, or whatever the new aspect crests. I had it written down somewhere and I can't find it now. The new aspect crests in the War Within are going to drop from 9 and above, but we don't know that. That was something that was data mined. We don't know for sure because it hasn't been announced yet. We'll see when I think the beta servers are back up now, but regardless, that's something that we'll get more information on that down the road. But yeah, more to come on the Mythic Plus affixes. This is a very big change. Basically what it's going to boil down to, and they give you a little summary here, at a Keystone level 12 and up, the Keystones will have the following affixes: Fortified, Challenger's Peril, Tyrannical, and Xal'ata's Guile. That's it. Nothing will change. It's all the same. This is really cool. I really like this. And they're also changing how they're doing the dungeon scores with this, the Raider IO score that came in during Dragonflight. So, all told, I think this is a really good change. I think this is going to be something good for the longevity of the game. Again, because it gives them some flexibility to change up these +2 affixes, but have the 4 through 12 affixes be the same pretty much throughout. And then it'll be consistent. You can go, hey, I know what a 12 is, and it's the same whether I'm in the War Within Season 1 or Midnight Season 2, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everything's the same because you know what you're getting once you get to 12. So we'll see. I don't know. This is a very exciting. I really like the idea of the Kiss Curse affixes early on. I like the idea of making things really hard for people trying to push keys. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty excited. So we will see how the beta testing goes, and I will report on that next week. We'll talk about that, and I'd really like to get a little bit more feedback on these Mythic Plus affixes from people. So I might do a little bit of Reddit diving if I dare. So we'll see. All right, let's move on to the weekly rant.
It's time for the weekly rant.
All right, the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is WoW Remix, Mythic Pandaria. And the reason that I wanted to talk about that is because I've been reading a lot about this. And so I haven't been playing that recently because, like I said, I've been doing the beta. I've been doing Keystones on Dragonflight, and I haven't had time to get back to my Remix characters. I'll still log into them once in a while and do the daily quest, whatever, do an LFR wing, do a dungeon, do a scenario. But it's getting weird because we're getting to the point now where when if you go into a raid, you might get into a raid and you're like, okay, who's super powered in this raid? And then as soon as the raid starts, it's like one shots all the way across. I haven't done any of the heroic raids, and obviously I haven't done Mythic Siege of Orgrimmar, but I really find this to be interesting. So when Blizzard made this promise to us that we were going to be so overpowered we wouldn't know what to do, we were all like, cool, this is going to be exciting. And then it started and we weren't, and everybody was mad. And then people started frog farming and doing all these different things that the degenerate players do because Blizzard doesn't have a red team. It kind of soured some of the excitement for people because they're like, hey, I want to be that powerful and I can't be now because that got nerfed. All right. I mean, that's fine. But we are here now. And we still have, 55 days left of WoW Remix? Yeah, 55 days left of WoW Remix. We've got a lot of time left, and we are already powered out the you-know-what. People are going through and just obliterating raids. I just saw something today. Somebody soloed Mythic Spoils of Pandaria in Siege of Orgrimmar. They soloed it. How? How are you doing this? Because these raids are scaling to our level. It's not like, oh, I could go solo it right now on live. Yeah, sure, you could. But on WoW Remix, that's something special. So I find it really interesting where we are at Mr. Pandaria. And I wanted to kind of talk about how I see this sort of thing happening in the future, because obviously Blizzard is going to learn lessons from this, and obviously people are having a lot of fun with it. But we've been in here for a month now, a little bit over a month, and I think people are starting to kind of trail off from Remix. It's not that it's bad, but that it's not, there's no new content. There's nothing compelling that's keeping them there. If you've already farmed all the transmog, you're already super powered, you got the mounts, what else is there to do? I guess you could level up a bunch of alts, but then your alts are trapped in Pandaland until the, basically till the new expansion launches. You won't even get to come out for the pre-patch, to do the pre-patch event. So you can't get your alts, all the pre-patch gear and all that stuff. I'm just wondering what's going to happen with WoW Remix. I feel like it came in probably a little too late for Dragonflight to really, I don't know. I gotta be careful how I say this. I think WoW Remix was a really great thing for WoW in general. I think that it really kind of helped revitalize Dragonflight, and people are playing retail. But I don't think that there's not a lot of legs to this. I think 3 months was probably too long. I think 2 months would have been better, but if you had said 2 months, people would have been like, oh my God, I don't have enough time. I've got FOMO. So is 3 months good? Maybe what you could do is you could say, all right, this is a 3-month event, but at 2 months in, we're going to give players the option of opting out of the event. You're level 70. Here's some starter gear. You can leave. Because that way, if we do this going forward, if we have WoD Remix, if we have Legion Remix, if we have Burning Crusade Remix, whatever it is. Actually, Burning Crusade Remix would be a lot of fun. Can you imagine doing all of those Netherstorm quests again? When's the last time you did those? Honestly, nobody does those quests because it sucks to go all the way through Burning Crusade. The quest design isn't as good as it was after Cataclysm. It was really rough. The raids would be fun though. Think about that. You've got Karzon, you've got Tempest Keep, you've got Gruul's Lair, there's a lot of really cool raids in the Burning Crusade. Black Temple, Mount Hyjal would be really fun. Oh my gosh, can you imagine standing there waiting for wave after wave of these guys to come in? You're like, come on, hurry up so I can one-shot these guys. I think it would be really cool to be able to do these remix events every few months. I know we would get sick of them after a while if you just did one if it was like an ongoing thing. But if you did one every 6 months for a 3 month, and then you have 3 months off, and then you do another one, or it doesn't even have to be on a timer. It could be, hey, the War Within season 3 is it's been a few weeks and people are getting bored of the game. Here's a new remix. I think that would be kind of cool. I think that's something that I'm hoping that's something that Blizzard is planning to do. I'd love it if they just gave us a bunch of remix options where we could say, hey, I'm going to do this remix. Well, I'm going to do that remix. And we can all pick whatever remix we want to do. This is a trial. Obviously, Blizzard has made no mistake they have not hidden the fact that they are using this as kind of a test to see how this goes. And I think it's pretty cool. So I really hope that this is something, because it is a lot of fun. So I'm hoping this is something that they really push going forward. I don't want this to be a one-off event. I don't want this to be this comes once every 5 years. Give us at least once a year. More often, I think, would be better. But if not, once a year is fine. I guess I can live with that. But give us multiple options. Give us 2 at a time. Give us Wrath of the Lich King and Legion. Let's let the players prove which one they think is the best expansion. Give us Legion and give us the opportunity to get all of our artifact weapon appearances. Now that would be pretty cool. Give us Wrath of the Lich King. Let the people get the mount. Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the name of the mount now. Midnight. No, it's not Midnight. That's from Karzon. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm dying. Gonna have to look that up now. I can't believe I forgot the name of that mount. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I really like the remix. I hope that they can use their experience from this to kind of fine tune it and give us a more polished remix experience going forward, and really flesh it out. I think this is a good way to have a new game mode. And honestly, if this is a new way that you level alts, you get to level 70, and then you can opt out of remix if you want. So be it. Why not? Why not let players do that? So anyway, I wanted to touch on this because I haven't talked about remix for a while, and I've really been wanting to, and I've really been wanting to get back into it. So I think that I'm really hoping that with things kind of dying down in the weeks before the pre-patch, that I can jump in there a little bit and have some fun in Pandaland. So, all right. That's going to wrap up our show for this week. Thank you so much for listening. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to get on this microphone and speak to you. If you want to get a hold of me directly, you can reach out to me on Twitter. I am @Denethar, or you can email me. I am denethar1@gmail.com. You can also check me out on Twitter. I'm on Twitch and YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, great. Please subscribe to the channel. It would really help out. YouTube is, if you don't subscribe on YouTube, then you basically have no distribution. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. I'll be doing some Twitch streams, maybe even some Panda Remix streams, but definitely trying to get on some beta streams on Twitch here coming up. So I am @Denethar01 on both Twitch and on YouTube. And I'll have all the links in the show notes. So if you want to find me anywhere, you'll be able to do so. All right. Thank you again for listening. Remember to be good to each other out there. It's a real person on the other side of that keyboard. So remember to be nice, smile, have fun, and don't worry about the Mythic Plus affixes. It's going to be okay. All right. Take care. I love you all, and I'll see you in Azeroth.